Oh no, the feminist is bringing up false facts again. Jeffrey agrees with her. He's a white knight. Even though he's a man, he acts like he hates other men just because he wants to sleep with the feminist. Adonis doesn't need to say anything. He looks her right into the eye. She looks away. Jeffrey argues with other men. We need to do something about the wage gap, guys. Women earn 77% of what men do. Adonis looks disappointed. Like it's not even worth to argue with them. And furthermore, the patriarchy is Jeffrey sounds like a spurg. He's bringing up false information that he classifies as facts. No one with common sense believes what Jeffrey's saying. Everyone who looks around can see that men are suffering. I remember there was commotion in the house once, and everyone seemed a bit sad and guilty. And my mom told me, no, don't go speak to your dad. He's sleeping right now. And eventually, once I got the information of what happened, he was working late nights in the shop that he owned. He was attacked. And the same thing happened years later as he worked as a taxi driver. He was attacked with a bottle. He was left with a black eye for months. One of his fingers is more like a stump that he lost when he was young working in a paper mill. A lot of men have similar stories. I was working late once in 2018 and a group of guys tried to stab me. Fast forward a couple of years and I'm working night shifts in a homeless accommodation next to guys who don't really have anything to lose. There are millions of men working death professions, dangerous jobs, and this isn't spoke about anywhere near as much as it needs to be. A death profession is usually a low-end, low-wage job that doesn't really require like a higher level of education. In practical terms, these jobs pay usually an extra £1 to £2 per hour, but they increase your risk of death on the workplace by twice as much, maybe more. And almost every single person who works in a death profession is male. Of course they are. I didn't even need to tell you that fact. Think of a dangerous job and you think of men working it. This video is not to bash women, but it is to highlight the suffering of men that we usually don't get to speak about. I noticed that I had to give a disclaimer like, oh, by the way, I'm not bashing women. We have to give a disclaimer to talk about a man's issue. Because the moment that we mention something about men, we mention an inequality or an injustice or the suffering of men, you're branded as a misogynist. I always imagine that minority who's come from a different country into somewhere in the West and he's trying to create a life for his family. Of course, he's not qualified for a lot of the higher end jobs that he would dream of one day. And that's why he really wants his son to do well in his studies so that he can get one of those jobs that this father looks up to. So he makes money in the ways that he can. This is why you often see minorities working the same jobs like Uber and owning shops and having their own small businesses. And if you haven't been around this space, please believe me when I say that these guys witness the worst of society. When you work in a shop and you're open late nights and you sell alcohol and drunk 20-something-year-olds, they're even worse than Jeffrey. These are the type of guys who are like literally, like they just like to like be violent and shit and racist and everything. And they come into the shop, they hurl abuse at this guy who's just trying to make money for his family. Why is he open so late? Why does an Uber driver work at 2 a.m. instead of being in bed with his wife? Because they literally make a couple of pounds more per hour on those late nights. And in late nights is where the danger spikes up. Construction workers, men who work in oil rigs, lumberjacks, every single dangerous profession is filled up almost in, you know what? The percentage of women in these jobs is so small that I'm not even going to acknowledge it anymore. We're not going to do this shit like almost entirely, like 96. No. We can just say it's filled up entirely of men. If they can exaggerate their facts and say shit like there's such a thing as the wage gap, I don't need to even explain the wage gap to you, but the true wage gap, it's like such a basic like key stage 3, like not even GCSE, like primary school level maths that some random feminist 10 years ago got, and people still bring it up, and every single time it almost makes my blood boil because all they did was count a certain number of men, certain number of women, see their income and see, oh, but men's on average is higher. What they don't see is men are more than 10 times more likely to die on the job. What they don't see is that men fill up overtime hours, that men are more likely to still go into work when they're sick because they need to. The real wage gap is the fact that this gap isn't big enough. If someone's risking their life, then should they not be paid more?
He's a man, so it must be sexist.
You have to know that you are the enemy. You have to know that you are the perpetrator. You are the attacker in this modern society. You are the bad person. This must be like a middle finger to the face, like a slap on the face to the men who are actually working dangerous jobs and they're being told that like women aren't being paid enough. Imagine the outrage if there was a discrepancy between a man and a woman's income in some random company. That would literally make the news. And you know what's weird? More and more there is a discrepancy in this wage. More and more it's so clear that companies are actually paying men and women different. And of course, it's not in the way that most people think. They're paying women more. Women are getting promoted just literally because of the fact that they're female. How is that not the sexism that we should be discussing? And the worst thing about this, which most people, especially women, don't realize, is that this is a lose-lose for both of us. Most women who are watching this might have already clicked off and thought, oh, Hamza's actually a misogynist. I'll just watch his business videos instead because they're good. I don't want to see him hating on women. They don't realize that just bringing up something like this doesn't suddenly just mean that you're a misogynist. We're the feminists of the 1900s. When they brought up some inequalities, were they sexist towards men? No, they were suffering and they wanted to bring that up. The same is happening towards the men's rights movement. because just because you speak of male issues does not mean that you want women to suffer, that you think that, like, you know, they're bad people or anything. I want the women in my life and I want every woman to live like a good life, but not at the expense of men, because societies fall when this happens. And even on the individual level, people don't realize how big of a problem this really is. There is a boy crisis. Men are down bad, and it's so easy for us to turn a blind look to that, especially if you're a woman and you think, oh, you know, because like women are doing good, yay, femme power. If you're a straight woman, you should be very, very, very worried. Like, extreme. You should be probably more worried than the men, because you will succumb to the pressures of technology because of this. Because the men that you want will not be attracted to you, but the men who want you, you will not be attracted to them. Because of technology, you will see the best men around you and you'll want them. But why would they settle? No offense, but why would they settle for just one woman? This dynamic where there's such a small percentage of men who are attracting the majority of women, but leaving the majority of men so deprived from intimacy and attraction. This is a very dangerous place to be, and it's a very lonely place to be. There is not an equal split. This means that the most fulfilling thing in our lives, which is our relationships, it is that person that you connect with and that you have children with, that has been destroyed. That's the end stage of feminism. It has destroyed relationships by making women so unattracted to the majority of men. So the men that they are attracted to are so up there, so high class, that these guys won't even think to just have like a normal relationship. These are like the boys. These are like the high value men who, like, you know, fly around and they're not going to get into a long-term committed relationship. So everyone, by the cause of feminism, is depressed and unfulfilled, except for the high value men up here. The high value men always win. And whilst it's worth us boys, now I'm speaking to my boys now, whilst it's worth us to maybe try and rebalance society and see what dent we can do here, for our individual selfish goal, we should strive to be one of these guys. Do not get left in the 80%. Do not be one of those guys who has to work a death profession just to make ends meet. Scroll down right now and share this video to a friend who might find it interesting. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.